Welcome back to a quick chat in the Cadillac. My name is SG. I like to explore the simplicity of complexity. So if you don't know, this is my show where I break it down for you both real and quick. Today I got some nice little topic to talk about. We got to talk about influence, peer pressure, and I need to set the record straight. So let's get right into it. Okay, peer pressure, influence, it's like this external force. It's not like it is an external force that's often applied by our peers, our family, our friends, co-workers, lovers, whatever the case. But peer pressure and external influence is something that you have to be able to discern whether it's right or wrong. And I guess the misconception or the lie that people tell themselves because it's easier to believe is that a lot of times peer pressure and influence is going to be wrong. Now, it's nuanced, right? It's not always true one way, but for the majority of the time, there is a rule you can follow to understand whether this peer pressure, this influence is actually going to push you in a direction that is forwards or push you in a direction of stagnancy or just straight up backwardsness. In either case, you end up going backwards. So let's get into the rule. Most people don't realize that when you bring decisions, that you've made or that you're going to make to the people around you, and you ask for their input, a lot of times they're going to err on the side of caution. And there's many reasons for this. Now, people revert to caution because it's the safest way to advise you. Okay, whether they care about you or not, it's the safest way to advise you. If they care about you, they always look and assess the risks as heavier than the rewards. At least for most people that you encounter on a daily basis, unless you surround yourself with successful risk takers, they're going to look at the risks and say, this is why it's not safe, in order to either maybe not entirely discourage you, but in their mind, they're presenting you with a realistic worldview. I do the quotations because as far as realistic worldview goes, it's always based off stats and numbers, and we can't quantify you as an individual with a number or statistic. So if 99% of people fail at something, who's to say that you're not the 1% that doesn't, right? They would have no way of knowing that because you haven't actually done it and tried it and seen if you would be the 1% already. But people who care about you will err on the side of caution because they don't want to be the one who lit the fire under your ass to go get burnt. Essentially, they don't want to be the one who encouraged you to do some dumb shit, and then some dumb shit happens and you could come back and blame them, and ultimately it could hurt your relationship. But it's not always entirely that black and white. They could swing all the way to the opposite side of the fence where they err on the side of caution out of insecurity in their own lives. And whether or not you'd be able to tell where exactly someone lies on that spectrum, I can't say. But what I can say is this: there is sometimes a solid reasoning behind why people will, peer pressure you in a direction that's backwards or stagnant. Whether they say yes, do it, or no, don't do it. Now, we could also talk about the people who do so out of insecurity and they paint it as though it's caution, right? People who don't want you to make a decision or take a risk, because if you succeed in whatever risk that you're taking, or if you make that decision and it benefits you, then it makes them look less willing to be successful or less willing to take the same risk, and therefore in their mind it devalues them and all their choices and decisions. So they'll use their insecurity to discourage you or encourage you to move backwards or stay stagnant, and reframe it as caution. In a lot of cases, sometimes they're bold with it. They'll be like, you'll never be able to do that shit. Sometimes they'll be like, well, you just remember, most people cannot do that shit, and you might be one of those most people. In fact, chances are you probably are one of those most people. And even though it's a little bit snaky, it does exist, right? And most people don't fall all the way on one side or the other where they fully care about you and they only just want to be cautious to warn you. And they also may not fully be insecure and are using their insecurity and hiding it under the guise of caution to discourage you or stagnate you. Sometimes people typically fall somewhere in the middle, leaning, one way or the other. And for a very select few people, they fall right smack in the middle. But that information doesn't change the outcome. A lot of times when you bring decisions to the people in your circle, or people who are just witness to you making or proposing the decision you're about to make, it's going to be a difficult decision. Anytime you reach externally for validation on your decision-making process, it's usually because you're not super confident in it. And if you're someone who's just not confident in any decision they make, that's a problem that needs to be addressed. But if you're a person who's moderately confident, a lot of times there will be decisions and risks that you're thinking about taking, and you're like, ooh, I don't know, maybe I need some outside input on this one. Those are the exact decisions that can make or break you. And that's a heavy weight to bear as an individual, especially when you have people around you who you look to for guidance for some reason or another. That's a heavy weight to bear. Ultimately, though, you have to understand peer pressure is a force that typically will resist growth, just in general. Unless you surround yourself with people who are highly successful in whatever way that they decided is important to them, then you're probably going to be encountered with a lot of resistance when you do try to grow and you bring those opportunities and potential decisions or decisions you've already made to people who are not attempting to do the same thing. Or maybe if they even just haven't done any of that stuff, because you can't really ask a bush how to be a tree. It's not going to make sense. And that's why peer pressure is difficult to overcome for people, because their lack of confidence and the fact that they need the validation is a lot of times what stops them from actually taking the chance or the risk or, making that decision. Now, if your friends are peer pressuring you not to drunk off the top of a building because you're drunk and your plan is to land on a mattress 30 feet away, okay, that may be an instance where even though it's probably a difficult decision to make, you might want to listen to the peer pressurers. But that's a very specific and nuanced situation that should not apply to this line of questioning, because it would seem pretty ridiculous for you to do that anyways. I guess do you, though. That's not really, it's kind of distracting from the overall point here, which is, peer pressure is an external force. And a lot of times when we're trying to do something of value in our life, when we're trying to make a decision that alters the path of our life, it comes from a place that's reaching out internally. It's a place internally that is desiring for more or desiring to be honored. And therefore, when you reach externally for that, you're already saying like this internal, whatever conflict or ambition that you have that's going on, you're already making it less valuable, because you're saying, I need to go outside of me for this. Now, I definitely 100% get it. Okay, I was a person who listened to peer pressure for a long time, and then I flipped all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum, where I basically just resented peer pressure or outside influence, to the point where if I made a decision and I proposed making a decision and anyone had anything to say about it besides "you do you," I was like, man, fuck what you say, I'm gonna do the opposite. And even though that's not the right answer, it did allow me to build a very thick skin in relation to peer pressure, outside influence, because I just completely disregarded it for a long time. Now, there is wisdom to be found in other people's cautious warnings. There is wisdom to be found in other people's perspective of a big risk or, a chance that you're taking to change your life in whatever manner that you're attempting to change it. So once you get to a certain level of discernment, you should be able to understand there's value in every perspective. The value may not even be directly related to you, but if, let's say, you're trying to be the best baseball card trader in the world, so you go out and you say, I'm going to buy $10,000 worth of baseball cards. Someone says, fuck you, baseball cards ain't worth shit. Like, they're just a hater. Then, at least now you know this person's a hater. I'm not going to bring this information or any other information to them ever again. And that's how you can get value from even the worst case scenario, or the worst possible scenario of bringing a decision or a potential life-changing decision to your external, to your circle, to people around you. Realistically is a word that I don't really like, okay? If you think about when people say realistically, they're always shooting lower. Realistically this. Realistically, we should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. This is the bare minimum, realistically. Or realistically, most people don't actually get to do this. Realistically, most people don't ever make this possible. Stop thinking realistically. Nothing is real until you make it real. So whatever you want to be realistic probably can be realistic in one form or another. Overall, outside influence is a very slippery slope, okay? So don't go running to it, because you're going to slip and fall and slide down the mountain that you just tried to climb so hard. Focus on your internal. Focus on what you want, what you know, what you're attempting to achieve. And then if outside influence comes along the way, you can use that and discern whether it's proper guidance or just external noise that you need to disregard. But it takes practice and takes confidence, and confidence is developed in here. That's the message. Peace.